The record on. All right. Thank you and welcome to what we're going to call a new year, new era. Instead of a question and answer, we're going to call it a Q&A for living privately because this year in 2026, there is a lot that is changing, not from the element of jurisdiction or just what we do. It's just going next level kind of things, which is so needed. Um, what we're watching in court with people in their houses and trying and showing clearly that due process and procedure are being violated left and right. In the element of how courts are handling people's homes and not protecting people and not allowing for people to have um, a right procedure taken upon the different elements of law enforcement, all that stuff's going to be changing in such a big way. And I don't mean negative. I know people are watching what's going on with ICE. Just remember something, guys. I know cops do wrong all the time, and out of the thousand plus people that are being killed a year by law enforcement, um, there's two sides to that coin. There was this video that I was shocked by where they gunned down a woman, ICE gunned down a woman. And there's another video from the other side showing there was a guy on her front left bumper that nobody could see, and he was literally on it. Um, I'm not sure who took the shot. Just remember there's two sides to every story, and before you get hyped up over something or lodge yourself into fear on something, I want you to know that you got to just let yourself think through and don't go into fight or flight. And that's one of the things that we're doing with the VIP members on his advocates. We're dealing with the elements of how to not live in fear and to have that perfected life right here, right now. Not just jurisdictionally speaking, spiritually speaking, but um, biblically. And I know people really don't want to hear that, but it's kind of funny how the Word of God is a perfected life. But nevertheless, you can go and take a you can I love watching the kid. He's got like 18 million followers right now, and he goes to all these billionaires and he asks the same set of questions, and some of them are different, and it's all on the spot kind of a thing. And what did you do to become how did you become and he does all these things, and they're miserable, and or they're overmuch, and they don't really have the quality of life. Quality of life is, for me, just something that I'm really learning at age 55, and I don't want to ever let it go. I'm at this point where I lived a long time in a lot of different things, just as you did, fearing in the world, looking overhead, seeing what I was seeing, and um, you know, all these different what people would call conspiracies now that they're coming to be conspiracy facts. They're still a conspiracy in a lot of different people's minds, but yet they're still a fact. And there are some that are still conspiracy theories. And these cause angst and they cause us to feel a certain way, and that's all by design, guys. I'm going to tell you right now, we don't want to live under the rule of the authority of the enemy. We want to make sure that we're living in accordance to God's will, and that means peace, joy, love, forgiveness, grace. But it doesn't mean turn the other cheek. It doesn't mean become soft. It doesn't mean, we're complacent. And I think when people understand the true nature of what God intended for His people, I think that's where your power is. You were created in His image. You have authority like you've never really realized. Your pastors never told you. You've been sheepled down, you've been softened, you've been, hey, you owe me. If you're not paying 10% of your gross, there's all these conditions coming from churches and different things like that. And this isn't to put down a church, but listen, it is what it is. And I've never been shy or coy about calling it out. And I understand that pastors don't understand this because they're not digging and they're not looking at the core of the truth. And I just want you guys to know that um the word of God has been manipulated. I can there is no doubt in my mind. And there's still people. that present the manipulation and they still twist it. And meaning they have their version of the truth. And I think that's where we all have to really come under the Elohim from an understanding of having direct relationship with God and letting him speak to our hearts about all things and not being under that conviction, knowing that we have the grace of the cross. And so those are the things that really we're learning a lot about. I know there's many people listening right now, and they're just going, why are you having a sermon? This isn't a sermon. 2026, I've had a lot of people in my life, a lot of friends in my life, people that meant the world to me. I had to let them go. I had to let them go. They were taking away from me the mission that God had for me. They were taking away the joy, the peace, the love, the forgiveness, the grace, the different elements of um, what makes life good, what makes life real, what makes life abundant. Abundancy in life isn't money. Abundancy in life isn't, these things that we think they are, coming, being of the world or being in the world. And so that's why we're talked to or we're told by God in the word that we can have the abundancy of life, but you never really truly get that or understand that until you've received the gift of the ability to make money or have money and know that it doesn't. There's a lot of people, yeah, it makes things easier. Yes, there's a level of comfort. Yes, there's all these things. But the reality is, without the thing that you can only get from God, no fear, peace, love, joy, the fruits of the spirit, if you will, none of it makes sense. So in 2026, this is a year where we fight back. And I'm not saying there's a physical fight coming. I'm not saying we are at war, but the devil, there are regimes, there are things that are at war with you, and they want you miserable. They want to take every freedom that you have. They want to control every element of who you are. And I see things totally different now. I see things for what they are. They're when you truly seek out God and you ask him for wisdom and you're able to see the things for what they are, and you can glean from things what you need to, and you can leave on the table what you don't. And every day you're going to run into things that you're going to glean from and you're going to leave on the table. And if you have friends around you that you're not gleaning from and that are just tearing you down, and I mean, coarse gesturing with you all day long, not supporting your dreams, your goals, your visions, not there for you emotionally, physically. They have no morals, they have no ethics. Um, and you got to look at the people you're living with. You got to ask yourself, is this it? Is there a way to turn this around? If the ship cannot be turned around and some ships cannot, maybe it's time to abandon ship on your friends, your best friends. And I know it's a hard one to hear, but if you want to break these patterns in your life, and this is a year where you have to get your crap in line. We're gonna have several years of what I would call growth, what the world would call catastrophe, largely, what I would call a what's the word? Um, if you're ready this year, and you can be very ready, and it's not just financially speaking, it's being in a position where you're safe jurisdictionally, be in a position where you're safe spiritually. I think, quite honestly, the biggest benefit of being a believer was knowing that I had a jurisdictional covering. I thought that was when you understand that and you get that for yourself, you're going to go, oh my God, I'm safe like I've never been safe before. But when you start being obedient the next level to where you start listening and you're coming out, and then you have this jurisdictional protection under man as well, which they keep making fun of. I mean, crap, guys, they're not even acknowledging. You look at like the Patrick Bet David interview with Wiener, um, and how Wiener makes fun of the element of Patrick Bet David and um, how Patrick Bet David was going down the road of the conspiracy theory of all the dead people around the Clintons. And it was never addressed. He must have asked it five different ways, like to Wiener. And then Wiener said, "Oh, you're one of those guys that are going to bring up chemtrails too, right? Oh, yeah, yeah. You know what? Look, the funny thing is that is a white elephant in the room that we need to deal with. And it's very real, and it's the law has confirmed that chemical trails exist. The law of states, the nations, United Nations. It's very clear that the law supports the fact that they exist for geoengineering purposes to reflect um, the sun, so we can cool the earth for without understanding the other problems that are caused in that element. Um, but listening to a masterful negotiator, somebody who is so next level, meaning Wiener, that guy who went to prison for molesting underage girls. He uh, he was masterful at his response to Patrick Bet David, and he basically threw something out, and Patrick Bet David handled him. He said, "Yeah, oh no, I see you, and you're a dark man." It was straight up calling him, "You're a dark dude," and that's you're gonna have light confront darkness all the time. But you're what we're seeing right now is we're not seeing the overlords of industries, of pharma, medical, and I'm speaking of modern day medicine. If you knew of a documented non-pharmaceutical way to heal somebody, and there was documentation, tens of thousands of cases beating two, three, and four stage cancer. But there's not one medical community documented stage four cure. But there's non-medical, private, naturopathic ways, thousands of documented cures for cancer. At what point is our medical community going to give a nod to the non-medical community, the naturopath, and attaboy, and maybe yield to big pharma because you can't? At what point is the doctor going to be charged for a crime against humanity, going against his oath or affirmation? At what point is pharma going to be held accountable for the now new number one cause of death, which is unknown, when the obvious is the obvious and known, very known? Because only one thing changed, and that was an administration. At what point is an entirety of an administration and everybody acting within an administration going to go to prison for forcing things and a massive amount of deaths upon the American people? A white elephant. At what point? At what point are we going to go? Is the fog in California, I mean, literal fog going through California, going to stop? At what point are the fires burning entire villages down and the water getting turned off, and then the show hitting, Trump flying out and doing the show in front of people, then nothing happens? The promise to rebuild, the promise to do this, but no, everybody's got to vacate because nothing comes to fruition. Listen, you can believe what you want to believe, and I know there are some hands being tied. I get it. There's moves and counter moves, and we're playing 5D chess. I get it. But as a layman, as somebody who is a king in his own court, in his own castle, lawfully, without an army. My army is spiritual in nature at best. My army is limited to a series of protections. What are we, the people, going to be able to do to stop an agenda from completely isolating you into non-existence or subservient behavior? And at what point are our children going to wake up and stop promoting it like it's the best thing on earth? Socialism, social credit score system, the things to which destroy communities, destroy countries. At what point are we going to realize that we do actually have the best country structurally in the world? And that it's not riding on the backs of one race, and that all races have an opportunity. And then we can prove that financially speaking all day long. At what point are we going to stop and say family? And what kind of family? And what is right and what's wrong? See, 20, 25, 30 years ago, you were put in into a mental institution if you dressed in girls' clothing and you were a boy. 25, 30 years ago. But today, you're paraded on TV on a Budweiser commercial. Yeah, Budweiser paid. They went from number one beer to like number 28, whatever it is. They lost big time. And is it only dollars and how we spend them? What's going to happen when you don't have choices of how you spend your dollars? What's going to happen when you have a digital currency deposited to your account and there's only a limited function of what you can spend on? But they're controlling what you can cook and grow and collect in your backyard. So I know this year, I know this is the biggest change agent for a lot of different things. See, for everything that you see that's going on in the negative, there are communities like his advocates that are being raised up. There are a people that will have means, that will have ability to support a greater cause, a greater good, where we don't have to print money out of thin air to support our satanic agenda. We will be able to develop large scale private communities. See, I proved it was hilarious. Every time I do something, I try to equate it to something that God wants me to get out of this. So if I'm going through an event, I'm like, okay, where's the lesson here? Like, why am I doing this? What is the teaching, God? And I went out and I met a very important dude, and we're on the water in Florida and this, that, and the other. He became a client, but that's not what I felt the big need was. I was on the ride on the way back and heading to the airport, and we saw somebody do something unlawful, going through the county where Disney World was, and the cops couldn't pull the person over. And I asked the Uber driver, I said, why? And she said, oh, because this is Disney World's land. And it hit me like a ton of bricks. I'm like, son of a gun. And then I started doing this back trail in my head. And then I did a bunch of verifying and validating, and I went, oh my God. See, Disney World doesn't pay state tax. They don't pay property tax. Disney World is private with how they acquired their land. And I started thinking backwards, well, how did they know about this? Obviously, they're in they're in the know with, who they know and money and this, that, and the other. But I came back to a farmer, a Japanese farmer here off Catella Avenue in Anaheim, California. Remember, Anaheim is where Disney got its start. I walked into Disneyland. If you go to the first building on the right, at least 10 years ago, that's where they store the deed. It's a copy of a deed. Me being a real estate broker, I got to look into the deed and see how it was, you know, titled and what the form of the title is and how much it was for and all these things. And then I got to read a bunch of articles on the acquisition through eminent domain through the city of Anaheim and through the state, and they started picking up big pieces of property all around Disneyland just by force because they were the biggest taxpayer in California. They couldn't get this one dude off Catilla. They couldn't control it. They couldn't own it. It's because he had a patent on it. And I'm like, all right. Disney got schooled in his first avenue in venture. See, in Anaheim, Disney pays a lot of taxes. But in Florida, they pay a donut. Zero. So I promise you that it's a knowledge base thing to structure up your land private. You may have a house. There are elements of contractual agreements that you still have to take into consideration, like associations, like encumbrances that you have on your deeds and different things like that. But the reality is, yes, if you have a property and it's free and clear of all encumbrances, you can go down to the center of the earth with the mineral rights, the water rights. Nobody can tell you how to build, what to build, when to build, what well you can dig, how much water you can take out of the ground. It's yours, but the title has to be appropriate. And so going through life, Walt Disney, whatever he was, I've heard a lot of negative things about him. I've heard it's not even his name, learned the same thing the powerful people teach and hold in private for themselves. And it's not just patents, it's styles and formations of deeds. Trust me on this. Yeah, if you look into deeds of old, where they were fee simple, they were not taxed. The reason why is because it was the style of the and venue of the type of deed it was, number one. Number two, it was that's number one, and exclusively to that alone is sufficient. But number two is they didn't own the people back then. Today they own the people. Today they own the equivalent of your name, your birth certificate, which is what is appropriated on that deed, which now they own. So I want to say this to you guys because 2026, the enforcement, the element of the things to which we are getting massive processes done and progress being made for people to own the land, truly go back in time and own the land. The deeds have to change. And most real estate investors don't know this. I listen to a lot of gurus, and I'm really saying this to you guys because this is going to be your security blanket. This is going to be the absolute. You're gonna watch um, things get flipped and under executive orders, people losing things left and right, but you're never going to see that with somebody that owns their land at the very core from the bottom. And yeah, I see the Florida AG lost in court. As a matter of fact, it started with the governor. He had them prosecuted. He had the law changed regarding Disney. He got the state legislature to change the law. And I told my wife, I said, watch, they're not going to be able to do anything. Nothing. And because the legislature only has control over individuals and corporations and things to which are deposited into their county that they have jurisdiction over. And this is not one of those things deposited into their county recorder's office that they have jurisdiction over. And so to go back, the second thing, closest to a patent, which, patent to me is a allodial title, is fee simple absolute. You go look up the definition of fee simple absolute, and you have absolute tenure and title to the center of the earth. And you look at some of the old school deeds and you compare it to today, there are elements in the old school deed that you need to adhere to bring a deed truly into a private situation to where it is truly acknowledged you are private. Number one. Number two, you are under God. And what a better way to do it than to do it as a church, do it as a foundation, something that truly belongs to God. Now you're in the basis of an argument where the tax element over your entity is absolute and that your entity is exempt. And at least you have a platform that you can argue from. And so anything that you're doing in the interim until you get to that point where you're tax free is under duress. And I can't wait until we have tens of thousands of properties all over this nation. Let me take that, tens of thousands of acres land, people that control the land across this nation that we can now build community from and work with like-minded individuals. And yes, sometimes your castle needs to be protected, and that's why they did the things that they did. And yes, technology has changed, and this is why you need spiritual protection as well. And this is why I truly believe that we are walking into a new age to where you need to mark yourself with the spiritual, the physical, and truly look at your life very differently. Um, I've told this story a hundred times online. It's a true story. There's a ministry called Far Eastern Ministries where the guy goes to Asia and he's runs a huge ministry. He loses one or two people a month. They're murdered because he's got a real ministry where he goes into the depths and pits of the world. And he ran into this lady who has basically runs a camp and an orphanage, and she takes drug dealers off the street and cleans them up, gives a Bible to them, and sends them back out on the street, and they preach the gospel. The drug lords were losing profits by losing people, and they sent a team of people in to kill her. They are surrounding her in her room, ready to kill her, and they could not kill her. There was an invisible wall around her body, around her bed, and none of the stuff that they were using to kill her with was going through this invisible wall. She was then referred to as the woman without walls because she had no protections other than God. But she knew God was with her. She knew about the experience. And these guys went back and told their drug lords, and the drug lords said, "We got to make a deal with her." And they called her in for a meeting, and there was this meeting, and they made their demands, and she said, "No, I will take whoever God puts on my heart. I will bring them into my community, and I will give them Jesus, and I will send them out to the corners of this continent preaching the gospel, and you will do nothing." That is the deal. Long story short, this guy at Far Eastern Ministries knew this story and knew who she was and what she had developed and built, and faith, because her spiritual walk was close to God. She was obedient, she was close, and therefore the angelic protections that we hear about all the time, you hear about them from snipers, you hear about them from people where they have a gun they clean every single day and they fire this weapon every day, and they move in on a target, they put a round in it, and it clicks, and then they clear it, put a new round in it, and then it clicks. Then they pull back and say, "This one's not to die. This one's protected," because they can point that weapon somewhere else and it'll fire. Guys, there are spiritual things that are around us all the time here to protect us. And those are the things to which a lot of people are leaving on the table. And it sounds kooky, sounds weird to some of you guys. Scientifically, it's been proven. Scientifically, there's dimensionally speaking, things that we cannot explain. There are phenomena that are happening that are coming out in the secular world, proving phenomena of a dimensional realm that we can't explain. And I'm just going to tell you, it's light and dark, just like everything in this world, light and dark. And the closer that you are with God, the bigger the protection that you probably have. I'm guessing. And I want to just share with you, you still, like God says in Revelations 18:4, come out of her, my people. Because you can be obedient in the Christian realm. He's speaking to his people, people that have the spiritual element corrected. But if you want to not be a party to the plagues, you've got to understand that the woman, the whore, is a mystery. This is the word of God, not me. And it's for you to understand and figure out what the whore and beast system is and why they're doing what they're doing today with the show. So you can see the light and dark play in theater through acts, ACTS, and you can watch the promotion. This is television. I didn't figure this one out. This is many other people. Hollywood. Go look up the definition of holly, the holly tree, and what it means. Television to television, channeling to channel what? Programs. Programs created for what? To program your mind. I mean, it goes on and on and on. What they have done for to entertain us. Figure that out. Think about what I just said. Look into that for yourself and realize they use words very specifically that become, you know, like Kleenex, like Coke. It's just second nature. It's a part of our everyday life. And not understanding that they have a deep, dark meaning. And we're just watching the Roman Colosseum. We're watching the shows. They're feeding us. They're giving us the bread, the drink, and watching a show. And we're not worried about everything that's going on around us. And this is why God says, come out of her, my people, because you being in the system, partaking, giving your money to, pledging your life, fortune, and sacred honor to, are going to be judged. Yes, the plagues will partake on you, but they won't on the people that come out of her. And so coming out is a physical act. We know this because it's not spiritual alone. It's not religious or religion related alone, although that might have some components to it, but it's not the Catholic Church. It's not the Muslim Church. Coming out is a physical act where you have previously pledged yourself under a system, a whore that placates you, postures its children to Baal for the sale. And guys, this is at the point where it's not funny. This is at the point where, um, in our nation, if you've never heard me say this before, there's a 500,000 children every year that disappear. Gone, poof, bye. And we celebrate, the feds finding 300 or 400 kids. We, you are offering your children to the altar of Baal to the tune of 500,000 of them a year. They publish the numbers on the FBI website and they don't tell anybody about it. They don't make it a big deal. It's not something really important, but the sacrifice keeps happening over and over. You, if you're in the system, will be judged. It's your children, it's your dollars going to keep the cover up happening. The cover up is government level. Listen to me. The cover up of all bad things on this earth is at a level of where this government called the United States Corporation knows about it all. The government called the United States runs the biggest drug campaign, drug enforcement, not enforcement from the standpoint that they're trying to stop it, they're trying to control it. They are the biggest drug traffickers in the world. They are the biggest child pedophilia controlling interests in the world, the biggest porn producers in the world, United States Corporation. They're taking the money to which you pledge and they're using it for dastardly things to go around the world. Yeah, Trump did a little something different than what George Bush did, where George had to kill a million and a half plus women and children to go and collect on one man. I agree. But there was different, you know, I still think that we need to be very careful with the current administration. Very, very careful. I think we're getting played on both ends, my opinion. But I do know one thing. I love my country. I am for my country. I've never been more for my country and holding it together than right now. But we're watching these shows through news, and yes, it feels like there's a lot that's been gained because this administration is in the front of things. And yes, it feels like there's a lot of goodness that's happening. I'm going to tell you right now, you're being baited. You're being baited to be complacent, not to raise up, because that's exactly what they do. You have no idea on how much privilege you have lost by not enforcing the criminal actions against what they did against this nation by closing this nation down through COVID. You have no idea how far regressed we have become, placated to that structural system that says they can do whatever they want to do to us and we're not going to do anything about it. To have judges to this day allowing for people to foreclose on properties where they're not the holder in due course, where they've never put up a dollar, where they don't have a chain of custody to prove that they are on title every day, all day long. To have your children being delivered on an altar to the tune of 500,000 of them a year is government level corruption and cover up. To having fog, fires, government, United States corporation, specifically corruption. And those are white elephants that this administration is not doing anything about. Let me say it to you this way. Listen very carefully, please. We can send 150 planes in for a very well thought out execution and plan to go into a country our size with an oil reserve next to none, with a mineral reserve next to none. Execute a plan to kill their people, get their president out of a secure holding, and bring him here for prosecution. But we can't solve why the water went out in Hawaii, why the water went out in the Pacific Palisades. We just do shows. We fly in, we do a show, act like we care, but we're not fixing the problem. Nobody's being prosecuted. The people up in the plains are not being prosecuted. Same with these child traffickers. Same all across the nation. Crime is still at the forefront. However, there's a lot of good going on. It's not just bad. The news is not going to report bad because sensationalism and negativity seems to be what everybody wants. And this is the exact reason why our VIP members are getting what they're getting right now, specifically over the next year. Changing their mind is going to change their life. Knowing the right people the right mindset is going to change everything for everybody that wants to live in that. This is a program to which they are bringing people into and getting them subjected to ultimately becoming programmed sheep. This is why we created His Advocates TV. If you're on this right now and you've never heard about His Advocates TV, download it on your phone right now. We are instituting the back end systems right now that are going to bring that into mainstream over the next several years. His Advocates TV will be a voice for the people that will not shut down or turn people off because they said something we didn't like. However, the good news is it's going to be a platform that will still be up and operational and private, allowing for the voice and the name of Yeshua to be exclaimed at the mountaintops when they shut down every other voice across every other media. There will be one, His Advocates TV, that stand with our King and on the right side. And that is what's going to turn us into a mainstream from a quiet little fledgling because we will not falter. And it's because of how we've structurally set this up. And I believe God's hand is all the way through this. You will see people that have podcasts of all different kinds that will be able to talk about the things to which they want and need to talk about, the counter narratives, how to build up the republic, different elements of everything. And they will all incorporate a positive message back to the people. It will not be all dark like every other social media platform out there. I'm not saying this is all going to be God induced, God enforced, but I'm saying the hand of God is over this. And you watch what happens because we won't cowtail. When they say you can't profess, we're private, we're not public, we can profess anything we want. When they say you can't meet, we can meet. And it's because we will have a jurisdictional privilege of where we sit, how we operate, not only online, but offline. And those are the things for this year that are going to change everything. So I'm really, really encouraged by this year. And I want people, if you don't know what to do in your life, if you're freaking out about the things that are around you, if you need encouragement, you need prayer, you need inspiration, I'm telling you, go to hisadvocates.org and join. We are going to change it up for this nation in a lot of different respects for this year. This year is going to be an outstanding year, and those things to which you think are unbeatable are going to topple one at a time. Why? Because I already know we win in the end. I already know that this thing has already been won. And we're going to be a part of that mechanism that stands until the very end and where we have that return. And so I'm encouraged. And I want to really sidetrack today, of course. I know everybody's expecting Q&A all the time. Um, but I wanted to give you a vision for 2026, and I wanted you to come under the umbrella of the Elohim and stop listening to everything man has to say. I get it, every kind of email, every kind of text, every kind of thing. And I'm like, stop listening to the internet. You have to tell people, you know, you're going to hear things on the internet, but you got to test it. And when the closer that you get to God, the quicker the response is that you're not going to need to believe in everything. You can glean from things and leave things on the table, and that's really all we need to be doing. But this is a big year, and this is really, I think, one of the last years where you get to pick. You get to think for yourself. And I know that sounds a little crazy to people, but watch what's coming. And I'm not going to get into it technology wise. We're going to have to be at the forefront of different things. We're going to have all kinds of things to get stuff out of our lives, technology wise, so that we can control our minds, we can be free. And those are all things that we're going to be talking about. technologies, and this is why capital and or the ability to have or the ability to be a part of community is going to be so big so that you can be a part of a system and a structure that protects you and we're all coming together under one system and structure. And that doesn't mean that we all commune. We're not going to be a bunch of weirdos, growing our hair long and having driver's license burning parties. It's not like that. It's community, true community of just like-minded people, people that understand jurisdiction, understand truly what a deed is and how important that is, because I don't want to get ran through when China comes to California. I'm going to stand firm on my international patents and rights to be here on this land, and it's going to be unique. Anyway, first question is for you. You already sent me an email. Then I'll get to the Q&A questions over here. Does there have to be a sale on a property to make the deed that his advocates provides record? No. If the property is paid in full, can one just make those corrections, specifically if made, making another necessary correction in this case when adding a spouse to that deed? You can do the same deed on a quick claim format, warranty, or, grant, depending on your state. And you do not need to have a sale supporting that. There's a checkbox different, depends on the county, but generally they have a form that you can check a box saying this is kind of like an inter-house transfer. And so it's a deed going from a name to a trust, kind of a thing to where you're not going to have to pay the property tax transfer once again. And it's just a small little box that you check on a form that they're going to give you, but you can do a correction in this case, adding a spouse. But remember, I don't know why you're adding a spouse to a deed. I'd be putting that deed in a foundation name. Spouse name is a birth certificate name that they own and they control. Just 2 cents. Um, okay, going to the Q&A. Kelby, I was going to check back on this recording later. My question is, a business partner and I filed an LLC without an SSN through you in October and November. Still haven't heard. Okay, we got today, and Andrew, I was going to send you the IRS documents tonight. We've been really backed up for the last 2, 3 weeks. We had 2 people out now. They need one correction done on it, and we should have it in 2 or 3 days. I get it. You've been waiting patiently, and I appreciate it. Doing it on doing a no social tax ID for an LLC is not as easy as one thinks, and it takes a privileged mind and process to be able to get that done. I'll give you a copy of what they returned to us, requesting from us tonight or tomorrow. And let me write that down. So I don't need to look up the name later. AR. And I'll email it to you or post it to your ticket. Awesome. Thank you, William. William, I bet you're liking the price of silver today. I think it's, what is it, 76.46. Not bad. Um, if y'all don't know, we have the ability to buy silver and gold at cost. Go to hisadvocates.org, click on products, click on buy silver and gold at cost, precious metals at cost, something like that. Go, go, go. Super important. These guys really do a good job, and they truly are at cost in purchasing. Next question. How would you go about getting a birth certificate and social security card without a child already having it? I wouldn't get a birth certificate and or a social security card, and I'm not going to recommend it. If then you're worried about getting identification, which is really all your child would ever need, if they're going to be brought up to live in the private, we can help a child without a birth certificate and without a social security card get a passport. However, it's going to require 2 affidavits from the parents, from the mother and father. It's going to require an affidavit from the person who was there watching the child being born. And it's going to maybe have 1 or 2 witnesses. If you had 4 or 5 affidavits and what's known as a letter of no record from the state, you're golden. We'll get the child a passport. We got flagged at our bank and our foundation account was closed. It was for signing without prejudice. I saw that today on a ticket. I was wondering if they would flag it if I signed on my DBA by Doe John Henry Holder. No, no, no. So, I used to sign really, okay. So I've said this 10 different ways. What I do is when I go to get an account, I don't ask them to do it right then and there anymore. I tell them, hey, send me the docs in a PDF. I'll print them out. Do you see how small that line is? All that says ARR non-assumpsit without prejudice. Now, what I do is I take Adobe Acrobat and I edit their docs and I put this size font touching the signature line and I sign over the whole thing. They don't see it. It's you probably wrote real big without prejudice. They can't have that. This protects you because they don't know it's there. And a lot of these people aren't proficient enough to examine bank docs. The second way to get it done is simply sign in cursive the words non-assumpsit. That's the only other way. Otherwise, you're going to have to find an account to where you are able to change the signature card to allow for you to open up an account. Those are the only ways. But we have thousands of accounts, tens of thousands of accounts open across the country. And I know how I did five of my accounts. So you're going to have, you got to be coy, you got to be soft, you got to be silent, and US Bank sucks. I remember you said that's where it was from. Also curious, we have now been rejected for signature of both UPS and at the bank, both a day or so afterward when the paperwork is reviewed by managers. So you're filling it out with such an obvious um, reservation. And I've never taught that big, obvious reservation. I've always said, bring it close to you, sign it super small, just like I had right there and just showed you, or sign it in cursive non-assumptive. It's the people that listen only 90%. I'm not saying that's you. I'm just saying we don't always get things when we've heard it maybe once or twice, and we got to hear it over and over. And so that's whenever people ask this question, I take my time and answer it because your signature is the most important thing that you have. It's your agreement. And the element of non-assumption is no agreement. And so you want to make sure that you're protecting your interest, but doing it in the same format that they do to you. What do I mean by that? Small print. Making the line the actual contract. Go look at a check, guys. Um, Look at the line on a check under a microscope. They make that a party to the agreement of what you're doing, the instruments that you are creating. So, you got to be as smart as they are and wise. And trust me, I have UPS stores open, a couple of them, and I have multiple foundation accounts open. And it's not that big of a deal. And I have multiple exchange accounts for both stock and crypto, which, by the way, I'd like to make an announcement. Coming up probably in the next 2 weeks, we're going to have a new trading, crypto trading exchange with dramatically reduced fees. And we're going to talk about that with you guys as it rolls out. We've been working on it for about a year. Uh, it's in a different country, institutional grade, institutional custody, in Australia. There's a lot of benefit to us being able to do it over there versus here. But it's Caleb and Brown level, but without the big fees. Just letting you know. Um, okay. Spent a lot of time learning bills of exchange, and I know that you can draw off a valid obligation and do all that. I was curious if you suggest a separate avenue to legally discharge a mortgage. I don't publicly suggest anything. I do know that some of these, I do understand HCR 192. I do understand the elements of why people have the right to do what they do. I also understand that they come after one out of 50 people that do these, and I don't know very many people successful. Anybody that says they're successful at getting a bill of exchange to discharge their debt, I ask them, I say, I'll give you $1,000 right now if I get an address and a copy of what you did to do the bill of exchange and a reconveyance. I can generally find the reconveyance on title. Um, but nobody ever wants to take that offer, and I'll give anybody right now $1,000. Just show me the process. You're charging somebody for the process. I'm telling you, I'll pay you right now for your process to show me a bill of exchange on an address where I get to see the instrument and the discharge, and I'll pay you $1,000 right now. That's an open offer to any of the gurus out there who are privately selling their packages for 2, 3, 400, $500. Respectfully speaking, so if it works, you have $1,000 right now. Even if it doesn't work, show me the process. I'll give you $1,000. The reason why I'm saying that is just to prove that it doesn't work. I will spend the money to prove that people are not getting long-term relief on their cars or on their homes on a discharge process. I don't know of people out there living. I know of people that have been able to pull some stuff off in court after the fact, but not because of the discharge instrument. It was other elements. I just want to see the offer, the acceptance, and the performance. That's all I care about. $1,000. Do you think we can recover our foundation bank account now? We just go and sign normally. And then there's a letter that you can send in a few weeks, just having them attached to the original account statement, or it gives you time to go open up another account. Just don't worry about it. Just go down, sign normally, or do a full reservation, like I showed you. But understand they're going to scrutinize what they've already seen. So if it were me, um, and I was trying to still get away with something with US Bank, I'd sign non-assumpsit in cursive, but they're going to look at your signature and say this isn't your signature and not allow the account to be open. If you sign normally, the account will get established, and then you can send a letter after the fact saying this is what taxpayer means to me. This is what US person means to me, because that's on the signature card, and say, this is my understanding. Please address or annex this to the original application for my bank account as a permanent record to the account being established. And that will protect you down the road if anybody were to ever question you saying, and remember what we're doing this. We're doing this because on that signature card, it says US person, US citizen, or US person, US taxpayer, or these different elements that would cause a thing for the IRS to be able to take control and say, hey, look, you see XYZ person over here agree that they were a US citizen or a US person. And the reality is no, I didn't agree. I signed that the way you see it there, but this was also sent certified mail a week and a half later, and they left the account open, acknowledging that they've received my interpretation of what those words mean on that contract. Now, um, that changes a lot because interpretation of a word on an agreement and your interpretation of that word is important when not rebutted, and they will never rebut your mailing that information. Anyway, something to consider. Otherwise, just go find a new account and sign in cursive, not a subset. If it were me, I would just get the PDF. I would change the elements on the PDF. And by the way, people say that some banks don't offer applications anymore. That's just not true. They all are required to give a physical application when requested. And banks do not like reserving your rights. It's true. That's why we got to be sneaky about it. Next question. We live in a townhouse that is connected to other units. After paying off our mortgage, we are able to purchase the land that our property's on. No, Belinda, you are not. You are in a community where the community owns the land and you own a legal description on the land. Sorry. How will this new ID qualify them or allow them to function in the future, i.e., jobs, taxes, etc.? So this goes back to the person asking the question for their child that doesn't have a social or doesn't have a birth certificate. Van, um, jobs and taxes are people that want to go and work under a corporation. Under that corporation, um, there's a whole nother element of how you deal with forms in working for that corporation. The child is going to have to be educated on whether or not they want to make this decision for themselves. It'd be a W-4T, an altered W-4, an altered W-8. The bottom line is they're going to have to make that choice up for themselves. You are not going to make that choice for them. They're also going to have to make the choice up for taxes. What you're doing is setting your child up for a free life. It'll be up to them. If they want to be an entrepreneur and go and start their own foundation and do business and open up accounts, they don't have to pay themselves anything and they can have money and prosperity and different things through that. I am not educating my children and did not educate my children to be subservient, this, that, and the other. And unfortunately, it's very hard and very difficult when they go to a public school or a private school or a public college and they get educated on a different way of living. And so don't worry about it. You set them up for freedom and keep educating them and hope to God they hang on to that. That's as far as you're ever going to be able to bring them. I know that you are short-staffed, but can somebody review the final docs for my birth state, Mississippi? You call me out in the public, Belinda, really? You think you're funny? You can call me out and make me read my own lack in public. I appreciate that. Yeah, we've got a couple people out. I'll take a look at it tomorrow. I'll have my staff look at it. So what do you need? Your final docs, you packaged them up in a PDF. Is that what you're saying? Final docs for my birth state, Mississippi State, where we live. I don't know what you mean. Where you're at. Anyway, all right. 5 o'clock. Hey, we made it. All questions are done. I was able to say a couple things. Regarding registered sex offenders should not be allowed in a church, right? If they supposedly convert, they should go to a specific church only for them. It's an issue with the local mega church that employed a sex offender. Hmm. That sounds like a setup question. I, yeah, a registered sex offender, I would not want them around my children. I'm not saying they do not have the ability to have the grace and forgiveness of God. Um, but there's always those tendencies, and you got to be careful on that. And I can't tell you an answer on that question. Um, I think this is why churches, the way that they are structured today, wrong. Mega churches, um, I think that's a big problem. You know, uh, but they're entitled to a relationship with God. I think if they are party to a big church, there's an issue with that church because they're known registered with a past history, pleaded guilty to, registered privately into a public system. Yeah, there's a problem with that. Next question. You gave me the final docs with my AOS. Okay, next question. Until we get a passport, should we get an EIC? What is that? Which would you think is best? I don't know what an EIC is. You got it, Belinda. Um, am I selling silver yet? That's a great question. So don't laugh at me, but I've been selling I got married this year to my beautiful wife after 6 years of dating. And like I always told you guys, when capital comes in, we move it to gold, silver, crypto, guns, food, ammo, whatever it is. And so I took silver and I cashed it in to pay for the cost of the wedding. And when it was at $32. And so now, I mean, we still have some silver, but the bottom line is you look at what you cashed it in and what that actually costs you today. And so it's funny, but that's also a cost of doing business. If I'd have left that money in FRNs, it would have lost 20% of its value, and I wouldn't have gained an extra 10 or $12 on every dollar I spent on silver, because that's what happened. So again, guys, go to hisadvocates.org, click on products and buy silver and gold at cost. Um, it's under our product section right there, but you got to be willing to understand that sometimes it's a little bit like a stock market, you know. I've been telling people, his advocates members, forever to buy silver and buy gold. And look at what it's done in the last 4 or 5 months. It's just crazy. It hit $80, and it's going to go way higher. Um, but you know, the point is I lost quite a bit, quite a bit by not waiting, and it's okay. You know, I got to marry a woman of my dreams, and you know, those are the things that are going to take place when you have money or hold money the way that we do. Um, you're not always going to sell it at the high candlestick. You know what I'm saying? You're going to hit a lower mark. But anyway, no, I am not selling silver for any other reason but to make acquisitions of things and or pay for things that are needed. Um, I did not go to the convention. The CES show is happening right now in Vegas. My wife had something happen. I had to go to a hospital with her on Sunday, and I've been taking care of her all week. So I'm doing whatever I can to make sure she's okay. They had to reattach some muscle and do some things. Anyway, she's okay. She's she's doing okay. Thank you for your prayers. And I wish I could have gone. I really do. Our foundation has been gifted the house land where we live, and our county tax revenue requires us to go in before a board explaining why I should be exempt from tax. Well, first off, you're tax exempt. You need to come from, and this, Patricia, is a big response. You know, everything you say should be in writing and handed to them before you're getting up and explaining anything. The only thing that you're going to do is have whatever it is you're going to speak, you're going to have in writing before them, with basically a cute little warning, shot across the bow, if you will. All private churches are exempt, all private humanitarian foundations are exempt, and it's not the use of the property, it's the holder of the property. They can only tax an individual or corporation, and that's number one. So when it's a private humanitarian tax exempt organization, there is no collection of property taxes. So if you're wanting help and you'd like some help, that's something you have to reach out on. But that'd be, um, we can give you maybe some letters of things that other people have worked on, but we're designing that right now for people to be able to stand before a board or commission or whatever, and be able to do those kinds of things. You shouldn't have to stand before a board begging for something that you already recognize at the federal level of being exempt. But there's a lot that can be done. I would not recommend going in there with a permission-based structure or environment. You're not requesting, you're demanding who you are. Um, Only commercial properties pay taxes, not private men or women. Yeah, but the birth certificates are what is being recorded in the county on these deeds, and so that's how they're collected. Um, awesome. Yeah, Abel, I wish I went to the CES. I wish I was there right now. All right, guys, we're done. Enjoy. I'll see you Monday at 4 o'clock. I'll see you Saturday at 9 a.m. And that's it for this week. Tuesdays and Thursdays, 9 a.m. Pacific. We're doing a lot of work on growth, personal growth, and we're still looking at crypto and all the good that it's about to hit. Guys, I'm telling you, if you haven't done it yet, go get yourself some XRP. XRP, I've been touting it for 7, 8 years now. Oh yeah, 8 years. And we're about to all reap the benefits of what that world's reserve currency platform is going to do for each and every single one of you guys. Get it, hold it, and then go join our website, hisadvocates.org, if you want to learn to protect it and how to live it out on the private side, because there's going to be the private side of how to control it, own it, and spend it. Anyway, God bless you guys. Have a great week, and I'll see you, hopefully, much of you, Saturday morning, 9 a.m. for prayer service. Enjoy.